Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and namaskar. My name is V Rao. I live in Ahmedabad. I am one of those who started the National HRD network. You may say I am the main person, founder, and the first president of the National HRD network. I'm sure you know that this was conceptualized sometime in the year 1985. Both Father Abraham of XLRI Jamshedpur and I were conducting a seminar at Bombay along with Larsen and Tobro. It was called a national seminar on recent developments in human resources. So at the end of the seminar, National HRD Network was conceptualized because for 4 days, about 40 of us shared each other's experiences. That was the time that human resource development concept was just taking shape. A few people had misconceptions about it, and a few were implementing it well. So in the 4 days, the conceptual integrated HRD systems was presented by me. The practice of it was presented by Dr. Denison Pereira of Larsen and Tobro. And at the end of it, others discussed their own kind of experiences. Like one of the participants said how HRD is perceived as fashionable, and he was recruited, and his CEO is not giving any real human resource development work. Another person shared how he was also in the same boat, but he got his CEO to give a talk in a local management association on HRD. And for giving the talk, the CEO consulted some of our books and consulted the very HRD manager who prompted him to give the talk. And in the lecture, he talked about what HRD should be. And the next day, he came back and called the HRD manager and said that, look, I have talked all those things yesterday, but what are we doing about all this? And the HRD manager said, I think that is the beginning of a change of my life in human resource development. So these are the kind of experiences we shared, and we felt at the end of the 4 days that we learned a lot from each other, and there is so much to learn. Remember, those were the days when there was no internet, there were no networks, there were no Yahoo groups, there was nothing. In fact, India was not yet liberalized. 1985 we are talking about. And communications were not that great. The so-called STD uh, and ISD, International Straight Dialing, and etc., were being thought of because Sam Pitroda just entered into the country, and the technology missions and other kind of things have not yet taken shape. So that was the time when we decided that we need to learn from each other, and then we concluded that why do we limit such kind of a learning only when XLRI or Larsen and Dobro sponsor a program? Why don't we continue to learn from each other and form a body? And that is how the National HRD Network was formed. It was Rajan Gupta who suggested the term network, and we conceptualized it, and we immediately in 1985 itself, that was I think March 1st or 2nd, on the concluding day in Sea Rock Hotel, we have requested some of the people to volunteer. One T.P. Raman from State Bank of India volunteered for Bombay, and K. Prasanna and K.S. Rao, Kishore Rao from Bangalore volunteered. PVR Murthy and Chandrasekhar from Chennai volunteered, and I, of course, was driving this in Ahmedabad, and we requested K.K. Verma to be a kind of a representative in Ahmedabad, and Anil Khandelwal and Rajan Gupta from Baroda, then later Rajan Johri joined us. So Baroda, Ahmedabad became the chapters, and in Delhi we wanted P.K. Sarangi to take initiative, but I think later Anil Sachdeva happened to take initiative and so on. I think that is the way I think the National HRD network was conceived, and many other chapters started later. The whole objective was that sharing of information and experiences and learning from each other may become maybe once in a while, once in a year annual affair, or maybe once in 2 years affair, but it should become a regular affair in each of the cities. So the chapters have got formulated. It took almost a year for us to start the national HR, register the national HRD network. But I remember the day that we registered it with IIM Ahmedabad wing number 15 as the registered office, and my house number 424 in IIM campus as the place where eight of us met and signed the whole lot of documents. And then later Ahmedabad Management Association helped us in registering this particular kind of a society. And we held the first conference a year later in Chennai, and the most important at the time it was called Madras. In the most important part of this conference was one full day was devoted to CEOs sharing their experiences of human resource development. The CEOs included Dr. Krishnamurthy of SAIL, M.V. Subbaya of EID Parry, and Arunachalam of TI Group, and Kalyan Sundaram from State Bank of India, and Ramakrishna, and a number of others from Larsen and Toubro, um, Denadayal from the Madras refineries, and many others. I think immediately chipped in, and one full day was spent. K.K. Noria and Suresh Krishna of Sundaram Fasteners played a very important role in the first day. So we had a full day deliberations on HRD and what it can do and what it needs to do and things like that. Later 3 days were spent, and one feature of the 3 day workshop was 3 day conference was that we had a large representation from government. We had people from Gujarat, for example, the Chief Secretary of Gujarat, Education Secretary of Gujarat, and all of them came and talked about the need for human resources development. Remember, this was all in 1987, and it was published as a book called Alternative Approaches to Human Resources Development. Economic Times gave a special page devoted to this the day before the conference and published the concept of HRD and what good it will do and things like that. So the other benchmark the conference established was everything started on dot, everything closed on dot, and day one we handed over a printed book to each of the participants containing all the papers. So these were all the things that marked that were benchmarkable practices we introduced in the National HRD Network. And as a result, I think it has created benchmarks for ISTD, NIPM, and NIPM ISTD. Also, quite a number of the people there started working with us, collaborating. The local management association started helping us. So the National HRD Network spread. In the beginning, the HRD newsletter, which was published and sent free every quarter to all the members, was the networking mechanism. Father Abraham used it to edit it in the beginning, later Keith D'Souza edited it, and after some time the Academy of HRD took care of publishing this particular kind of a newsletter for several years. So the newsletter became a networking mechanism, and the newsletter collaborated with the Center for HRD at XLRI. That is the way we have built up, and we use it to raise funds but subsequently only through membership, and we made sure that the membership is used only to service the members. And whenever conferences were held, we again made sure that lunches, dinners, conference kit, etc. were sponsored by people, by companies, and the conference fee is entirely saved for achieving the objectives of the National HRD Network. And it was during one of these conferences we felt that the National HRD Network as a professional body can only do certain things and has tremendous limitations in terms of promoting HR education, also in promoting research, and also spreading the HRD message to government and not-for-profit organizations. That is when a mission vision workshop was held in a national symposium. It was facilitated by V.S. Mahesh and Anil Sachdev, and M.R.R. Nair became the president at the time. He was the second president of National HRD Network. That was the time the book HRD Missionary and Excellence in HRD, these two volumes were brought out. That is when we decided that National HRD Network cannot achieve its objectives by itself because it is a professional body and people only donate their time. So we need an institution, and the institution has got to be an institution that promotes HR education, research, and a whole lot of other things. That is how the Academy of HRD was conceptualized. And the Academy of HRD was supposed to start a diploma in HRD, which started and ran for about 3 to 4 years, and a doctoral program which I think it tried with Indira Gandhi Open University in the beginning. Later it went on to collaborate with XLRI, and I'm sure some of you know the story. In a period of about 7 8 years, it produced about 25 fellows who are equivalent to doctorates, and some of them occupied very prestigious positions in institutes like the IIMs, XLRI itself, XIM Bhubaneswar, and joined also other places like Infosys, Wipro, and made a phenomenal amount of mark in terms of their own kind of competencies and so on. Why am I saying all this? Because I think HRD network has a glorious past. Come 2000, between 1990 and 2000, HRD network went through some ups and downs. We had Mahesh, who was there as a president for 6 months. That is after Dr. Uday Parikh. And within 6 months of his taking over, he decided to shift to UK, and we were thrown in the lurch. And I again took over as the interim president and made sure that the conference goes on as scheduled. And also there will be a new president in place. That is when Rajesh Vidyasagar came into the picture. And Rajesh Vidyasagar, when he got the World Bank assignment, he had to go to Washington. And almost towards the end of his tenure, when he was leaving, and suddenly we had to look for another president, and we got Debashish Mitra from Balarpur Industries to take over as the president and so on. I still remember Debashish Mishra raising a very interesting kind of a question, that how is it that you have the Academy of HRD which has the same objectives as that of the National HRD Network. And we said that National HRD Network formulated the Academy of HRD with the same objectives, because National HRD Network cannot achieve all of its objectives by itself, and that is why AHRD is an institution. NHRDN is a professional body, and the difference between an institution and professional body is that an institution will have its own campus, will have its own board of governors, will have its own classrooms, will have its own kind of programs, and they are all meant to promote the objectives of the National HRD Network. That is the way we conceptualize. And I am mentioning this to say that you will find very interestingly the objectives of the National HRD Network and the Academy of HRD are the same. And this is because the Academy of HRD is supposed to be an education and research wing of the NHRDN, but it had to be an autonomous body with its own board, with its own membership, so that it doesn't get totally dictated by the National HRD Network, and also generate its own funds and things like that. In any case, what is the purpose of my sharing this with you? The purpose of my sharing this with you is that the National HRD Network, in my view, at this point of time, is at a crossroad. National HRD Network has a great image, and it has been built extremely well in the last 15 years, starting with, I think, after we went through the ups and downs, after Arvind Pandey's term was over, I think we were again in the lurch because many of the chapters were not functioning. I again volunteered to constitute a special rejuvenation committee, went around the country with the help of Uday Parikh, with the help of quite a number of other people, I think in Bangalore, Rupande was very helpful, and a whole lot of others, including Murthy in Chennai. We went around and then we rejuvenated the chapters and reconstituted and started the National HRD Network on a higher pedestal, with Arvind Agarwal as the president sometime in the year 2000. Arvind has done a marvelous job. He introduced many things and found a great successor, Dr. Santrupt Mishra. And Santrupt even has done better. And then Santrupt found another good successor, Dwarkanath. And Dwarka and his team found Akhil Busrai. And Akhil, I think, got NS Rajan. And NS Rajan got Mr. Siddiqui, S.Y. Siddiqui, and Siddiqui and team got Rajiv Dubey. So we have had some of the top-notch leaders in HR and management as presidents of the network, and they were assisted by very, very able people. People like G.P. Rao in Delhi, and P.V.R. Murthy in South, Rupande Padki, and later Harish Devarajan. Now I can't take the names of all the people. And certainly, I think with the able assistance of Satyanarayana as the executive director in Hyderabad, and subsequently, a whole lot of them, they have done a marvelous job in the last 15 years. They have built network from step by step, and they have stabilized the governance systems. They have utilized the technological advances. They have even established a huge secretariat in Delhi. All of them are doing wonderfully well, running some of the international programs, collaborating with institutions like the Wharton School or with University of Michigan, getting Dave Ulrich people like him involved, collaborating, and I think many books that have come up from the West, I think mentioning and acknowledging the National HRD Network. Wonderful things have been done. However, we have a long way to go. The crossroad at which we are, some of the is something like this. Some of the chapters are functioning extremely well, and sometimes the conferences have established a very new benchmarkable practices. For example, I still remember the new benchmarks created by the Bangalore chapter in organizing the conference. They did a wonderful thing of doing away with mementos and financing the education of children in place of a memento. I think that was a marvelous kind of a thing that they have introduced. Similarly, they did a lot of research and then disseminated the research findings by creating special sessions for students from various colleges and institutions. And they got involved spiritual gurus like Sri Sri and a whole lot of others. So I think they brought in the contemporary kind of a thinking. So this was a great benchmark. Or the Calcutta conference was another benchmark which talked about sustainability as an issue. Although they didn't have too many people participating, but they focused very much and they brought out a book and they maintained the traditions and so on. So by now, National HRD Network has over 30 and odd publications, a lot of CDs, phenomenal amount of literature. In fact, we have used, and I've used some of the summer trainees, and we have documented these. And we have summaries of about 1,200 and odd papers brought out by National HRD Network, be it in their books or in their newsletter, and made these available in a CD format to some of the chapters, interested chapters, so that those who are working for their master's dissertations, PhD dissertations, or reviewing studies and other kind of things can work with these. These are available in case you are interested. You can always write to the Secretariat at National HRD Network or ask your own president or secretary to get these. This is the story. Now, what is it that we are at a crossroad? We are not at a crossroad in terms of the organization. We are more at a crossroad in terms of the potential for HRD network to make an impact. I think the most important mechanism for the HRD network to make an impact is not merely the National HRD network, it is largely the chapters. In fact, at one point of time, we decided to decentralize and suggested that every chapter should register itself as a separate body. Today, I think almost all the chapters are registered and they are independent entities. Now that puts a lot of accountability as well as responsibility on them. Each chapter normally has a president, and some of them have even vice presidents, and a secretary and a treasurer, and then executive kind of a board, which includes, I think, some elected members, some nominated members, and so on. So these office bearers are the critical functionaries, and all of them work on charity. They donate their time. They donate their time. That is the most important kind of. Rarely chapters have employed any people on salaries. Now, if they employ somebody on salaries, no harm. I think it can be a small amount, not a very big amount, and a part of it can be voluntary basis. I'm sure most of you know that for almost about 10 and odd years, Mr. Satyanarayana worked as an executive director with a very small meager honorarium and used it to walk to the HRD network office in Hyderabad and would travel by bus, and wherever he went he traveled by second class train so that a lot of money could be saved for National HRD Network. So it is a sacrifice of people like Satyanarayana and a whole lot of people like GP Rao, PVR Murthy, and various presidents I have mentioned who have donated their time, office bearers, other office bearers who have donated their time, that has built the image of network and a little bit of the corpus of the network. The same way, I think some of the chapters have built small corpus, and they are, some of them are trying to have their own kind of an accommodation and meeting place, libraries and things of that kind. These are all excellent developments. These are very good developments. Now, however, we have a long way to go. That's the crossroad I want to talk about. What is the long way to go? Uh, I identify 10 areas or 10 action points for every chapter. This is the 10-point agenda for the future of every chapter of the National HRD Network. The most important a part of the agenda, item number 1, is the very purpose of the network. The very purpose of the network is to generate knowledge and share the knowledge. I will focus on sharing of knowledge. The network was built on sharing and learning from each other. So the first point, I think, for all the chapters is, please promote every year at least one workshop where innovative HR practices are shared, and don't limit it only to corporate sector. A lot of innovations are going on in the not-for-profit sector. Some innovations may be going on in the government sector. Something may be going on in panchayats. Something may be going on in the municipal corporations and towns and things of that kind. I think we need to be constantly aware of very interesting HRD practices. All institutions set up for special ability people are nothing but HRD institutions. Institution for the blind, institution for mentally challenged, and a whole lot of things are all HRD institutions. The practices they follow can teach us a lot in terms of what is it that we can do in terms of innovations in our respective kind of corporations. The agenda item number 1, therefore, is the chapters of the HRD network should be spreading a lot of their own messages by facilitating innovation sharing workshop. The second item I would like to share, this is the second challenge or second area where we need to work, is the youth. I am very sorry to say, the more and more I am interacting with youngsters coming out of the B schools with HRM specialization or masters in HRM or social work schools with 3 to 5 years of experience, I find their knowledge level to be pathetically low. These are the Gen Y people, and their knowledge levels are pathetically low. Some of them don't even know what should constitute a good performance management system. Some of them have not even heard of what is a 360-degree feedback. They don't know how to identify competencies and things like that. So there is a lot of education need of the Gen Y or young HR managers. So the second challenge for various chapters is to identify the younger generation in their respective cities and towns, and conduct a series of sessions. You can give your own certificates, you can give your own diplomas and things like that. A few of you can volunteer, and those of you who volunteer to be teachers are also developing your own leadership skills. I'm sure you know the interesting research on leadership engine. The leadership engine theory says if you want to be a leader, first of all, you need to practice to share your point of view with others. Leaders are people who spend a lot of time teaching their point of view to other people. So those of you who volunteer to teach and educate the Gen Y or educate the new generation of HR managers are doing a marvelous job, not only in helping others but also in developing your own kind of skills. Now there is a third challenge. The third challenge I would say is that I am very impressed with a large number of people post 50s wanting to do their doctoral programs. For example, our own network presidents have established this. Akhil Busrai got his doctorate rather, I think, very recently, practically after his retirement. Arvind Agarwal, during the last 5 years of his tenure, got his PhD. Similarly, we have people from people like I mean, there are many people in South who have got their doctorates post 50. So many are wanting to do their doctorate. Educational institutions have opened up. Educational institutions need new era of professors. Like some of the IIMs are introducing a concept called professor of practice. So you don't have to think that you will retire at 60. You might take 60 onwards off for the next 10 years to teach the youngsters, and you yourself remain young. So if you want to be a researcher, I think the most important thing is to learn to be to researching. So the third important agenda for the chapters is to promote people to do their doctoral programs. Nowadays the world has opened up. Many can register for their part-time doctorates and use a lot of literature that is available in National HRD Network. I think collect the every chapter should have all the 30 and odd publications of National HRD Network, should have a set of CDs of the National HRD Network which contains 1400 and odd abstracts and things like that, and make these available to all those who want to do their locally master's dissertations, doctoral work and so on. So this is the third kind of a role. Disseminate the existing publications of National HRD Network and your own chapter's work to all the other people. The fourth challenge that I would pose to the chapters is go and teach in the local B schools. Some of you who are experienced must offer courses, teach B schools so that the youth coming out of these schools will have excellent HR managers and so on. The fifth suggestion that I would like to make, or the fifth part of the agenda that I would like to suggest for all the people, is that adopt the competency model that has been developed by National HRD Network. A few years ago, people like Dwarkanath and number of others from Bangalore, including Pallav Bandopajay and others, have come up, put in their heart and soul. Balaji was also involved, put their heart and soul, and then developed a competency model and joined hand with CII. And later on, Arvind Agarwal and team recently have been working on or coming up with a newly developed competency model. You have Dave Ulrich's competency model available. You have, I think, a whole lot of other things that are there. So adopt the competency model that National HRD Network develops and put people through assessment centers or whatever is the assessment that is possible. So each chapter picks up the model, trains a small group of people, adopts this particular model and enriches the HR people by adopting this. Whole lot of things can be done. So your chapter can pick up this particular kind of a thing. So this is the fifth kind of a challenge. Sixth kind of a challenge is promote research in terms of the local schools or announce research awards, have competitions, have youth to participate. I think this is a good way for all members to learn and so on. So that is the sixth challenge of promoting research, and you should be able to use the Academy of HRD in promoting research. Seventh challenge, there are many misconceptions about HRD. I'm sure you all read this very interesting article called Why We Hate HR. There are some interesting reasons offered there about why we hate HR. It is said, I mean, many people say people who choose HR profession are the ones who are not the top, not the brightest of the lot. I'm not very sure if this is correct. We have had many engineers, many people who with IIT background who have gotten into HR. So this is a misconception to say that people who don't find admission elsewhere get into HR. It doesn't matter. Even if people who don't find admission elsewhere get into HR, McClelland's research has a good news. McClelland has found that success in life and success in any profession is not necessarily correlated with academic grades and academic achievement. You need not study in the best school, but you can be a great kind of a manager. Now this has some very important implications for all of us. The implication for all of us is that to remove this particular kind of a misconception people have. Now there are 2-3 ways in which the chapters can work for removing misconceptions. Number one, of course, by setting personal example. There is no substitute for setting personal example. HR managers should set personal example by their own behavior. They should do nothing which shows people, human beings, in a poor light. I think they should be people with high integrity. They should preach what they think, and they should practice what they preach. If they preach something and think differently, I think the integrity is questionable. They are not transparent. They become actors, and that is what brings in credibility of a profession. That brings down your credibility, your own credibility, and I think the entire profession's credibility gets lost. Therefore, it is very important that HRD managers should set personal example. And number two is also to be considerate and nice to people. That doesn't mean that you don't enforce discipline. You have to be transparent. You have to be tough where you are required to be tough, and you have to be considerate where you are required to be considerate towards other kind of human beings and so on. The most important task which the chapters can undertake in terms of removing these misconceptions is, besides setting an example, working with the line managers and explaining. Most line managers don't understand. HRD, particularly when you combine HRD with personnel management or the traditional HR function where administrative jobs are integrated into the human resource development jobs, you end up quite often projecting yourself as a villain. This is because administrative decisions always paint you in some form or other as a villain. So therefore, it is important for you to constantly communicate to people the reasons behind some of your decisions which may have made them uncomfortable. You need to examine your own style. You need to get your own kind of a 360-degree feedback done. And you need to have a constant dialogue with line managers. This is the seventh kind of a task that I would like to suggest to the chapters. The chapters can work out a strategy of removing misconceptions of HRD by working very closely with line managers and spreading yourself into the other kind of sectors and so on. The eighth suggestion I have, this is the dream that we had when we started Network. We said when we started National HRD Network, some of you may understand, may know that we define human resource development in two contexts. One is in the organizational context, whether it is a for-profit organization, not for-profit organization, or a government organization. So HRD is a continuous development of competencies, continuous development of culture, and continuous development of also the commitment to an organization. We also defined HRD in a national context. We defined it in mid-80s, but today UNDP and others come up with a very interesting concept called Human Development Index. That is a good definition of HRD. When people can live longer, when they can have a good quality of life, and when they are more skilled, then you can say people in that country or people in that society are well developed. This is an excellent kind of a concept that we have. So our dream was HRD will spread from corporate sector to not-for-profit sector, for government sector, and to the open society. That was the dream that we had. Very unfortunately, in the recent years, we have gone more inward and inward. Today we are serving only those people who can afford to go to Shanghai or to USA for SHRM conferences. But how about those people who can't afford? I'm sure you heard of this particular Kitsap, a very ordinary person from UP making his way to IIT. And when they were faced with financial problems, the entire country woke up to say that, look, we are there to help you. So that is the kind of a talent we have in the world. Phenomenal amount of. In fact, my own background, I came from a poor family where we used to work hard. In fact, I was born in a daily wage laborer's family where we had to earn our own kind of a living. So ultimately, I think I'm responsible for setting up the National HRD Network, worked for 40 years with the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, currently serving on the board and a society, and helped many international agencies, which means what? Which means that there is phenomenal amount of talent in our country. And there can't be a better example than our own Prime Minister, who says he started his life as a chaiwala. So I think the HRD network will have to get into the wider world. It doesn't mean that you should be stopping all that you're doing. I think every year, if every one of us spends just about a week to 10 days, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a month, go out to the world, work with them, it helps us to do our jobs. So a very important challenge I want to throw for the National HRD Network chapters is to go out into the world, spread yourself to other places, network with them, learn from them, and come up with new mechanisms of developing human resources. The ninth point that I like to mention is connect with colleges. Not only the B schools, connect with nursing schools, connect with medical colleges, connect with engineering colleges, a whole lot of colleges. Many of them want to set up HR departments. You don't need to set up HR departments. You need to work out HR mechanisms so that nurses learn nursing well, doctors learn the medical science well, engineers learn engineering well, and all this with a human face. I think that is the challenge that we have. So the chapters can connect with various colleges and so on. And the last part I want to mention, every president has a role to play. Every secretary has a role to play. Every treasurer has a role to play. Every office bearer has a role to play, and every member has a role to play. Please understand your role. And do not take up positions and then keep quiet. If you have taken up a position, you must be able to devote some time for the uh, for for the objectives of the association. You should be able to, at least I would say, if uh, 4 to 5 hours a week, 50 weeks, 250 hours, this is not much. You don't have to do it between 9 to 5. You can do it from 5 to 9 in the evening, or whatever you do. You will have to, once you have taken up the role of a president, you will have to set aside certain amount of time, maybe a day in a week, maybe half a day in a week, whatever you have decided, or 2 hours in a week. A president cannot say that I can't find an hour a week and still I would like to be the president or a leader of this organization. I think if you can't spend that much of time, you better do not take up the position of the president. Same thing applies for secretary or treasurer or executive board member. I think these are the people who should be spending more time designing mechanisms, doing one of the 9 things I have talked of, or maybe many more than these 9 things and so on. So you have a responsibility. A group of people, maybe in your chapter, there are 200, 500, 2000 people, they have put their heart and soul into your hands as professional members. It's not the fee they pay, it is the symbol that they give by being a member of National HRD Network, which most of them put in their biodata. I am a member of the National HRD Network. What are they communicating? They are communicating that they are getting something from you and they are also giving something from you. I think it's more important that you as an office bearer, president, treasurer, or secretary or an executive board member will have to devote some time and ask yourself this question: in what way am I giving something? Because this is good for you. When you give something and benefit 200 or 2000 members of your chapter, you know how much wonderful thing that you have done. You have educated them, you have given a piece of information, you have probably helped some of them to get promoted, you have helped some of them to become more humane, you have helped some of them to contribute something to the economy or to their own kind of a family or to the community or to the country and so on. So this is the kind of a thing that you are doing. So spending 1 hour a week or 2, 3, 4, 5 hours a week, I leave it to the charity because you have volunteered, but don't say I can't spend 1 hour a week and I still want to be president of the National HRD Network chapter. At national level, I think there is much higher responsibility and so on. Okay. Now, for those things which a secretary can do or a accountant can do, have a part-time person who can do this for you. It takes care of, I think, a little bit of a living. Pay something like maybe 5,000 a month to somebody, 2,000, 3,000 a month, whatever is the minimum salary. He can take care of your accounts. He can organize all the secretarial kind of a work. It helps that particular person financially. It could be a part-time student. It could be a poor student who looks for some kind of a support and so on. But you spend your time in a qualitative way. If you can't spend your time and try to do all these things, you're doing injustice to National HRD Network and you're doing injustice to yourself. And as a part of this, I would like to recommend every office bearer to get a self-appraisal. Every 3 months you must send out a self-appraisal report. Your term is 2 years. If not 3 months, every 6 months you must send out a self-appraisal report. In 2 years, you should be sending out at least 8 reports. Ideal if you can send 8 self-appraisal reports, and at the end of 6 months conduct a 360-degree feedback. Appoint a small team as a part of your chapter and get a 360-degree feedback. You can hold your head high and proudly say, I have learned something from this, I am a different person, I am a better leader, and so on. Put yourself through an assessment center, go through training program, offer training programs, teach, and do a whole lot of things. So the 10th point for a national HRD network chapter office bearer is to contribute, contribute, and contribute, and periodically evaluate yourself, get yourself evaluated, and the end of the 2-year term, you are able to write your own story to say that I have made a difference. I'd like to see many of you make a difference to National HRD Network, just as the way MRR Nair made a difference, Uday Parikh made a difference, GP Rao made a difference, PVR Murthy made a difference, Satyanarayana made a difference, or Arvind Agarwal made a difference, SV Nathan made a difference, Prabhakar made a difference, Ravi Kant Reddy made a difference, or Akhil Busrai made a difference, NS Rajan made a difference, Siddiqui made a difference, Rajiv made a difference, Prince Augustine made a difference, many of the office bearers made a difference. These are all people who made a difference by devoting their time, pushing a whole lot of things, and so on. I want to wish you all the best, all the new office bearers who are going to take charge of the National HRD Network chapters, and also at the national level who are going to take charge. I want to wish you all the best, and I look forward to hearing great things about National HRD Network. I have already indicated to Rajiv Dubey that I have spent 30 years since the time National HRD Network was formed in a somewhat of a passive way in terms of governance in the last 15 years, but an active way emotionally, periodically commenting, much to the uncomfort of some of the people, particularly in the National Secretariat, when I went on raising questions that you should not be spending the charitably earned money on yourselves. You should be spending more on the people and so on. So I want your forgiveness for pointing out uncomfortable things. But I believed in whatever I have said, and if that has made you uncomfortable, I beg your indulgence and I beg your forgiveness. And I have indicated to them that hereafter you will not see me appear actively in any role in the National HRD Network. I wanted to be left alone, I wanted to be peaceful, and I want to feel proud. National HRD Network has done an excellent work and fulfilled the dreams all of us, late MRR Nair, late Uday Parikh, late VS Mahesh, and a whole lot of others who were involved in National HRD Network had. There was one person I must remember at this point of time, DM Silvera, who very actively worked in the initial years. He died at a pretty young age, but he was one of those who wanted to bring the Indian HRD interface and so on. As I keep talking, I might remember many other names, but that's not my intention here. I want to see the dreams of all of us fulfilled, and you're all instruments. You have a great burden, great opportunity, and wonderful kind of road ahead of you. I want to wish you all the best and all great success in whatever endeavors you are taking. Thank you very much for listening to this and viewing this particular kind of a video. Thank you, all the best, and bye.